Okay, so strap in for this one. What if America's quest for global power is the very thing that brings it down?
Whoa, that's a pretty intense thought.
Right. But that's exactly what Chalmers Johnson argues in Nemesis, The Last Days of the American Republic, which we are deep diving into today.
Definitely a thought-provoking read. I mean, Johnson wasn't just some, armchair theorist.
Oh, absolutely not. The guy was a Cold War expert, spent years studying empires, how they rise and fall.
And he uses all that to draw these, kind of unsettling parallels between the U.S. and, get this, the Roman Empire.
Yeah, Rome. Why Rome? What's a republic that crumbled centuries ago got to do with America today?
That's the million-dollar question, right? Well, Johnson's argument is that both Rome and the U.S., they both fell into the same trap empire building.
It's like he's holding up a mirror or something, you know?
Totally. Rome, with its legions marching all over, conquering, expanding.
And then you look at America today, military bases all over the globe, projecting power everywhere.
Exactly. And that's where this idea of imperial overstretch comes in.
And it's not just some fancy term. It gets to the core of Johnson's argument.
Yeah.
Hundreds of American military bases all over the planet.
Oh, hundreds.
And he doesn't just talk numbers. He paints this vivid picture. Life on these bases, luxury accommodations, recreation centers, even people to do their chores.
Really?
Yeah. He even calls them morale, welfare, and recreation commands. It's almost like, a vacation.
Wow.
Except it highlights this huge disconnect between the reality of military life for most Americans and those serving on these bases. And that's a big problem for Johnson.
Yeah.
Well, he sees this professional, highly paid, volunteer military almost living this separate existence. And it's a huge contrast to the citizen armies of the past.
I see what you mean.
Think about Rome, right?
Yeah.
Everyday citizens, landowners, they were the ones fighting in the legions. They had skin in the game.
They were really invested.
Exactly. That citizen army, it was woven into the fabric of Roman society. But then Rome transitioned to a professional military.
Oh.
Well, Johnson argues that's when things started to unravel. That shift in military structure contributed to the Roman Republic's decline. And it's not just about the military, is it? Johnson's argument, it takes this whole other unsettling turn.
Yeah, this empire thing, constantly needing to be top dog.
It's like, what are we giving up for all that power?
That's the question, isn't it?
So how does that even work? Having bases everywhere, a massive military, how's that hurting democracy back home?
It's complicated, but Johnson connects these dots, this focus on empire. It creates a power shift.
Like within the government itself?
Exactly. The executive branch, the president, his people, they gain more and more power.
And Congress. They're supposed to keep things balanced, right?
Well, they lose their footing. Like a seesaw, one side up, the other goes down.
And this is where Johnson brings in Rome again, right?
Oh, yeah. He compares Cicero, this Roman senator, defended the republic against the emperors.
Trying to hold on to power.
And Johnson compares that to Senator Robert Byrd trying to do the same thing in America today. Uphold the Constitution, rein in the executive branch.
It makes you think about those old Roman speeches. At what cost?
Right, but hold on, it gets even more nuanced. Johnson also brings up Michael Parenti.
Who's that?
Parenti defends Julius Caesar.
Caesar. Cross the Rubicon, end of the Republic.
Yeah, but Parenti says Caesar, he wasn't the villain. He was a populist for the common people.
And the Senate.
More worried about their own power, according to Parenti. So it's not so simple.
Okay, so where does Johnson land on Congress then? Good guys, bad guys?
Let's just say he doesn't hold back. He's really critical of Congress, sees them as failing at their job, holding the executive branch accountable.
And why is that?
Lobbying. Big time. Especially the military-industrial complex.
That's contractors, weapons manufacturers, all those guys.
They make a killing off this stuff. Plus, there's pork barrel spending.
Politicians funneling money into their own little pet projects.
Even if it's a waste just to get reelected.
It's like that saying, $1 billion here, $1 billion there. Pretty soon you're talking about real money.
Right. And Johnson compares campaign contributions to straight-up bribes.
Oof. So Congress is being bought and paid for.
That's the argument.
Doesn't exactly sound like democracy in action.
Not really, no.
But it's more than just money, right?
Right. Johnson also talks about government secrecy, especially intelligence agencies.
The CIA, shadowy figures, cloak and dagger.
It's become a real problem, according to Johnson. The government operating in the shadows.
Doesn't sound good.
It's a threat to democracy. Because if citizens don't know what the government's doing...
How can they hold them accountable?
Exactly. It's a breeding ground for abuse of power. And he uses the Freedom of Information Act as a prime example.
That's supposed to give us transparency, right?
Supposed to. But Johnson says it's been weakened, undermined.
Harder for citizens to get information.
Exactly. So you've got this expanding global empire, a power-hungry executive branch.
Congress more interested in lining their pockets than representing the people?
And now, intelligence agencies operating in secret.
It's a lot.
Hmm.
What about the CIA specifically? Does Johnson trust them?
Well, he tells this story about a cow named Bessie and a shit-smeared tail.
Okay, now I got to hear about this. Okay, you got to tell me more about this cow and the situation.
So Johnson describes himself as a kid, right, milking a cow. He called her Bessie. And just as he's got this full pail of fresh milk, Bessie swings her tail right through it.
No, no. All that work gone.
Exactly. And that's his point about intelligence agencies. Even with good intentions, they mess things up.
Okay, I see the connection. But what's the specific problem with the CIA, according to Johnson? It's not just about messy cows. Right.
No, it's much bigger than Bessie. Johnson says the CIA, they've become too focused on covert operations. You know, regime change, secret missions, all that spy stuff.
Instead of...
Their original purpose, accurate intelligence analysis.
Oh, so they're messing up their main job.
Basically. He uses examples like Afghanistan and Iraq, says the CIA totally misread the situation on the ground, provided faulty intelligence, and, well, we know how that turned out.
Speaking of Afghanistan, didn't Johnson uncover something shocking about the CIA's involvement there? Something about bin Laden.
Yeah, it's wild. Johnson points out that the training camp where bin Laden prepared his fighters, funded and built by the CIA.
No way. They funded the training camp.
Yep. During the Soviet-Afghan War?
Talk about unintended consequences.
Right. It's a chilling example of how those covert operations can backfire.
Big time. And it gets even darker. Johnson criticizes the CIA for stuff like extraordinary renditions and torture.
Absolutely. Especially after 9/11, the war on terror. Johnson sees those practices as stemming from unchecked executive power. Not only are they morally wrong, he argues, but they also hurt America's image in the world.
It's a mess. Global empire, power-hungry executive branch, a Congress more interested in their own pockets than the people,
Right.
and intelligence agencies operating in the shadows. What can we even do?
$1 million question, right?
Yeah.
And Johnson, he doesn't stop there. He gets into the economic side of this whole thing, argues that this massive military spending, it's not just about defense.
It's about what then?
Control. He calls it military Keynesianism. The government pumps money into the military-industrial complex.
Defense contractors, weapons manufacturers, that whole world.
Right, to keep the economy going.
So it's this whole cycle. Military needs more, lobbies Congress, gets more spending, which makes them more money.
Exactly. A self-perpetuating machine. Now, Johnson, he acknowledges there are some economic benefits, jobs, technology. Some of it helps the civilian economy.
But at what cost?
That's the issue, right? This dependence on the military-industrial complex, it comes at a price. We're taking resources away from other crucial things. Education, healthcare, infrastructure, the things that actually make a society strong.
And it's crazy how we have this huge defense budget, but then they need separate supplemental budgets for the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Like they're trying to hide the actual cost.
Exactly. Johnson argues that this budgetary maneuvering, it makes it easier for the government to go to war without the public realizing the financial burden.
It's like they think we're not paying attention.
Right. And he connects this to missile defense, too.
Which, let's be honest, always seemed kind of sci-fi to me.
Yeah, and Johnson was really critical of it, called it impossible and dangerous.
Dangerous how?
He said it could start a whole new arms race. One country builds a missile shield, others build bigger missiles to get through it.
So it just escalates forever.
Exactly. Johnson used Russia's Tupolev missile as an example.
Right, designed specifically to get past those systems.
Yep. A dangerous game. So Johnson's point with all of this is that America has a choice.
Empire or democracy?
Right. We can keep playing global police no matter the cost, but Johnson says we'll lose something along the way.
Our soul.
Maybe. We start to look more like the Roman Empire we claim to be so different from. The other option, we step back from the edge.
So what, become isolationist?
No, not that. But prioritize diplomacy, cooperation, invest in our own people instead of pouring money into an unsustainable empire.
It's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
So is America really headed for a Roman-style collapse?
Well, history is complicated. It's not that simple. But Johnson's point is that we have agency. We can learn from the past, or we can repeat it.
It's a powerful message. A little daunting, honestly.
It's a big question with no easy answers. But that's kind of the point of these deep dives, right? It's not about giving you all the answers, but giving you different perspectives, helping you draw your own conclusions.
So what do you think? Is Johnson being too pessimistic? Is there another way forward? There's a lot to unpack here, and we've only scratched the surface. If you want to explore these ideas further, and I think you should, definitely check out Nemesis for yourself. And while you're at it, why not explore other perspectives on American foreign policy? Keep learning, keep asking questions, and most importantly, keep thinking for yourself. Until next time.